All right, it's recording.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all very much for joining us for our third installment now of the Nash Talks Optimizing the Home Office Experience webinar series. And we're very, very excited today to have Sarah Lynch, the HR manager and technical recruiter in Runway in Galway, who's going to be telling us a little bit about their journey to remote onboarding. I think we thought this topic would be of particular interest to people working in HR and recruitment, as companies are beginning to ramp up recruitment again since kind of for the first time since lockdown started. I think one of the biggest concerns for HR is kind of putting in that infrastructure piece for onboarding new employees while they're still going to be working from home. Now, Rent the Runway, from speaking to Sarah over the last few weeks, Sarah's team in Rent the Runway have done a great job of rolling out a remote onboarding program from very early on in lockdown. So we thought she'd be a great person to listen to for a bit of inspiration or a good influence for people to listen to, just to learn a little bit about as they're trying to kind of adapt in lockdown to hire new employees. And there's going to be a bit of time for Q&A at the end. Now you can ask questions in the Q&A box at the bottom or email us if you have our email addresses, but we'll just save around 10 or 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. Sarah will be on for around 15 minutes. I won't waste any more of your time, Sarah, if you'd care to take over. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for the lovely intro. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'll just start sharing my screen. Technology, here we go. So yeah, as we covered in the intro, I'm going to share a little bit about our journey to remote onboarding. My name is Sarah. I head up the HR and recruitment function for Rent the Runway. To kick off, I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of what I'd like to cover today. I really hope that this will, share some insights and give you some actionable takeaways that you can adapt for use in your own organization. As Kevin has said, it is a very uncertain time. I think we have to deal with, continual change, and as things start to kind of loosen up when we are looking to bring new team members on board, I think we're all really keenly aware of how different the experience will be. So I'm happy to share some lessons on how we've approached that, with the caveat that it's still very much a work in process. So I'm going to start with the idea of telling a compelling story. Our story at Rent the Runway is certainly a compelling story. And then, a kind of question and sharing on onboarding design, the delivery mechanisms you'll use to engage with your new starters, the importance of documentation to guide that journey, and then leveraging the expertise and insights and ideas that will come from your own team, and finish with just a couple of suggestions on the iteration process that we're embracing in Rent the Runway. So a couple of quotes here. I think it's really important, even more so during this time of uncertainty, we approach our onboarding with keeping the employee experience at the center of it. And I think telling a compelling story is one way to really inspire your own journey with your remote onboarding or any sort of employee initiative, because that is what grabs people. So Lisa Crone is an amazing writer and teaches in UCLA. So I like this quote because it says story is part of what makes us human. So crucial to our evolution, more so than opposable thumbs. Opposable thumbs let us hang on. Story tells us what to hang on to. And this is very pertinent to us because we had moved from a really immersive in-person orientation in our headquarters, which is in New York, and we've had to adapt to not in person, not visiting the headquarters, and we had to look at the great program that we had and look at the essence of that and let that guide what we would hold on to and how we would adapt. Seth Godin is another great thinker in marketing and business, and this speaks to core values and understanding what is compelling about your own business and team. And one to remember is people do not buy goods and services, they buy relationships, stories, and magic, right? So I think that when we're doing onboarding and these employees' experiences, we can really kind of maybe get distracted by the need for lots of activities or ceremonies or coming together in really special places, but let's focus on what is most important, which is building a connection between your new hire and your team and your organization, and let that be your starting point. So to give you a little bit of overview about Rent the Runway. So Rent the Runway is a US-based service. The headquarters are in New York, and what do we do? It's a living, breathing, shared closet, right? So we're really, really obsessed by our customers who are the heartbeat of our business. It's a clothing rental service, but really our mission is to help women feel empowered and self-confident every single day. And we would see Rent the Runway's evolution as a business as really kind of a key market leader in the transition from ownership to access, in the same way that Spotify means you no longer have a massive collection of CDs in your house, but you do have endless supply of music in the palm of your hand. Rent the Runway thinks that way about your closet. Unfortunately, any women who are watching here, or the service is not available in Ireland just yet, but hopefully our engineering team in Galway might solve that. So it was founded in November 2009 by Jennifer Hyman and Jenny Fleiss. We have customers across the US, 76% of zip codes, and we partner with 600 designers, 15,000 plus styles on the site, and we've really, really developed our catalogue and relationships to give amazing access to fashion in this closet in the cloud. Right, so if you want to learn more about Rent the Runway, there's some really great articles. How I Built This is a super podcast. And then there's a nice NYT article on that. So that is our sort of who and why, what powers us as a business. And this is really core to, you know, the story that we want to tell our new joiners as well. So we have 4 locations across, 3 in the US and our new office in Galway. The HQ is in New York, as I said. We call them our dream fulfillment centers. These are our warehouses. This is like the engine of the Rent the Runway service. So our first dream fulfillment center is based in New Jersey. And we opened the DFC++, which is a new facility in Arlington in Texas in 2019, the same year that we opened up the Ireland Technology Office, right? So our focus in Galway is software engineering, data science and technology. And we have grown our team to 30 employees since we started the office in May of last year. So our journey to remote onboarding, in one sense, really did start with Galway becoming part of the Rent the Runway family, and having an office that was not in the same location, right? So the first overseas location. We did have an orientation program that was really well designed by the people team in L&D in New York, and that involved, we were very lucky to get to fly to New York on the second week of our orientation. So we have always taken the approach in Galway of building connections remotely, right? So we're not in the same location, but our teams are core to the software engineering function and the wider organization in New York. So from the get-go in Galway, we've always leveraged the powers of Zoom, the powers of, you know, communication that is asynchronous, to build a really, really strong connected office, and been very cognizant of how you bring culture from one location to the other. So this did influence our onboarding, and I just throw out the question for yourself, and where do you want to start? Where will you start, right? So taking the kind of storytelling idea through my presentation, hopefully this will work, identify who your storytellers are, okay? So that can be people who might be in the organization a long time, people from different departments. I have a picture here of our amazing office manager, Yvonne, who is an incredible storyteller for Rent the Runway, as well as fulfilling like her myriad functions within the team. She is definitely a champion of our culture and our core values. And this is a picture of Yvonne bringing our new hire who experienced the remote onboarding for the first time back in May, Bernie. They live locally in Galway, hand and socially distancing safely, delivering her setup pack to her to get her started in her home office, right? So I appreciate that may not be possible for everybody to have a personalized courier service, but you can think out of the box in ways to like start building those connections before someone even starts, right? So we have identified people across the business and use a lot of different either subject matter experts or department leads to deliver different elements of our program. So what is your story? You know, it is interesting when you're bringing new hires on board to build a broader understanding of your business, and Rent the Runway definitely take that approach, right? So our experience for our employees is kind of modeled along the customer experience, right? So if we take the customer journey when you're interacting with our service through a website, you know, starting with, you know, the actual platform itself, like the product, they have we have modules on the buying and planning team and what their role is in the business in selecting our inventory and developing these partnerships with our designers. We have different leads from areas across our software engineering organization who are responsible for different areas of the business, be it like our warehouse technology or our consumer engineering. So whether you are in human resources or you're joining you know, in a sales role or a marketing role, you will get that same experience. And this speaks to our core value of having the customer experience at the center, because we want to develop a really broad understanding of our business so that people adopt a sort of customer obsessed mindset and really see things from her perspective. And also this does encourage you know, cross-functional collaboration from the get-go. You're not in a silo, you're learning the bigger story. So this is the why of your business. So could you do something like that and not have maybe all of your orientation or onboarding kind of be delivered by one team or HR? It's another way to think about it. So consider your channels or tools. I, you know, appreciate that there may be people here from different size companies using different kind of software suites, but a lot of these tools are really adaptable. Like we use Google Suite for business, we use Slack as our internal messaging tool, and we use Zoom. And we have leveraged all of those tools to kind of create the channels for our onboarding. So to facilitate the modules being delivered by our kind of heads of departments and leads, really simple. They did their presentations, they did them on Zoom, and they recorded them. And we have uploaded those into our kind of learning management software. And this allows people to access that as and when, and we follow up with an in-person Ask Me Anything session when we bring our groups together. So we might have smaller groups, people starting, and we schedule an Ask Me Anything session for that personal connection when they've got a couple of weeks in the organization and have reviewed the material and have some questions that they want to talk through. So this, I've kind of covered my side already. Mixing your media is also kind of underpinned by an understanding of the personal circumstances that people are experiencing, working from home, managing maybe family responsibilities, childcare, and just the general sort of stress that everyone is under, right? So with our choice to go with pre-records on Zoom, we'll share a schedule with people, but it also makes it very accessible and also adaptable. So it is very employee centered. If we had scheduled, say, a lot of in-person activities in people's first week, you do create a kind of sense of pressure that you're constantly on Zoom, and you then don't have that flexibility in your schedule that you might need to, you know, take care of the things that you need to at home. So on the accessible tab there, and shared experience and personalized plans, there is a core kind of overview modules we want everyone to go through, and then in partnership with line managers, we do personalize people's plans for their role in their team. And again, that's a team kind of effort, very much driven by the line manager and taking what is important for that particular role and mapping that out for the new hire. Adaptability is, again, the employee-centered point that I mentioned earlier. So trying to make this scalable. So we started with a pilot with our one hire in Galway, and we learned a lot from that experience. So now as we sort of ramp up recruitment, and this is in Galway and New York, we're scheduling our intake to twice a month. So when we hire someone, we'll have fixed hire dates. And we're doing a sort of an abbreviated program for the week 1 of the month, and then the second part of the month we'll schedule the Ask Me Anythings, and this is to create the connection between groups of new hires, so that they do get to have a cohort of new joiners who are at the same stage of their employee experience, and also being cognizant of not having too much of a draw on the host time that they're doing onboarding activities every single week, which just wouldn't be feasible. And the importance of templates. We've done some pretty straightforward Google Docs and slides and templates that we share with line managers and take them through this revised onboarding. And then if they need support to complete them, the HR team are there to do that. But they're very much workable and adaptable to each role. So, on to the importance of my documentation. I just thought I'd share, probably a bit too small, hope they're useful, just a couple of the snapshots of the module overview, which is the one behind. So there are 15 different, activities and modules that make up our onboarding, and we have this mapped out, and this is shared with our new hires as part of their pre-hire kind of welcome email the week before they join. We do emphasize like the importance of staying in touch between like signing that contract and maybe starting, and that will come from HR, and also notes from the line manager just expressing like our excitement about them joining. We share some kind of resources, be it a recent interview with our CEO or some good articles that have been written about the company, and then give them a good clear map of in detail their first day and an overview of their first week. We like to give that a few days before, so then they can have a read and then maybe relax knowing that their first day is scheduled, which is even doubly important when you are going to be logging on by yourself from home. And then this one in the front is the modules that are fixed, and all of this open space is the adaptable space for line managers and other stakeholders to fit in what is required on the team and role level. In recent times, we have prioritized over the last 3 months updating our intranet. It's a wider program of work that we're doing in the HR team to adapt to remote working. Acknowledging that you need centralized kind of repositories, maybe more so than you do need when you can sort of drive by someone's desk and say, oh, have a conversation or ask a question. So we're really focused on knowledge transfer, building out our intranet, and kind of centralizing all of these documents. So when a person is at home in their office, that they have clear maps about where relevant information is, and also it just is a bit of a culture shift as well to facilitate maybe a longer time working remotely. The schedule I've covered there, and the other key document is a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and this is really part of like the map making for new joiners, acknowledging that you can do an amazing first week, but you don't want that support and thought about onboarding and ramping up to taper off. We see it really as like a 3-phase approach in 30-day sprints, and like those first 3 months are really, really key. So it's very simple. It's a Word doc again. It has all of your links to your internal tools, key people to meet. We work on a kind of OKR, objectives and key results. We have some information about that. They are very clear on the company goals. And then there are some objectives for those 30, 60, 90 days. And the first section at the 30 days will be populated by the line manager and have some contributions from HR. But we see then towards the end of those first 30 days, the 60 and 90-day goals are going to be a collaboration and conversation that happens between the line manager and the new hire and their team to really engage them in setting their own direction with support as they go forward. And we schedule regular check-ins to drive that process. So the tool guides, again, not making any assumptions that because you're familiar with an internal tool such as Slack or whatever it may be, just building out those guides. And that has come from feedback from our team and new joiners recently, that maybe they hadn't worked with Google Suite in a professional capacity and they would benefit from more training on that. So we'll start developing some programs that we can deliver for our next phase or batches of new hires in the next couple of weeks. the welcome committee. I love this photo. So it has been a really challenging time. I don't think we can, overemphasize that. And as a HR manager, and part of our team, we are all thinking about what comes next, right? So we have a lovely team in Galway. Our culture was really, really strong, and obviously based on a lot of social capital that was built up when we spent a lot of time together, and we are trying to bring it to life. By celebrating Pride, we do again acknowledge the differences. Pride in New York and the States was kind of last month, and it's kicking off around the country here. So we just, simple thing, we chose our Pride backgrounds and took a nice photo. We also did a virtual tour of the village in New York. So it's really incredible how people are using Zoom. So little things like that, I think, make people feel a little bit brighter, maybe overcome the Zoom fatigue slightly. So the welcome committee, as we see it, is drawing on expertise from across the organization. As I mentioned, those functional leads delivering, modules on their own areas and being available through open forum Ask Me Anything sessions to answer questions. But our real emphasis for onboarding through the whole program, and actually it's kind of core value across the organization, is the emphasis on learning, right? So this really gives people the freedom to enjoy the journey, ask loads of questions, not feel undue pressure early on in their employment to, be delivering and know everything, because it is a lot to take in. So we continually emphasize learning so that people feel really okay with not knowing until they get a good few weeks and under their belts and an understanding of their role in the organization, right? So the cross-functional collaboration piece is just, looking around and seeing who your partners are. So, maybe some people on here have a really big HR team and somebody might be taking care of this. So you're a smaller organization and you might be using an IT support company. Leverage those diverse strengths, leverage the people in your organization and network, and be really open about what you're trying to achieve and let them contribute. So we've had sessions with our IT team and HR and facilities to really work out the nuts and bolts about how we get that really important first step, which is getting everyone their laptops and getting them signed on, which is, can't be understated actually, how anxious people are about being able to access their profiles and so on. And also ideas on our onboarding and the social connections and how we build them. We're really looking to our wider team who have created the culture of Rent the Runway to help us bring that to life remotely. So it's one to look at in small team or big. There's definitely diversity of opinion and strengths that would contribute to a better program. So on the social connections, funky Zoom backgrounds to one side, we have a buddy system. So we assign every new joiner a buddy, can be within their own team or someone in the broader kind of organization or function with which they work, maybe on the same level. And that is just have a welcome coffee, that person that you can go to with any kind of question, right? So generally works when somebody is really engaged with being a buddy, and luckily so many of our team members are, and it just builds out the relationships from the get-go from the new hire, and we will schedule like kind of welcome coffee and a later check-in, and really those relationships can endure for the length of people's employment, which is really great, and prioritizing the fun stuff. So we will actually schedule a team coffee. We were doing bingo there for a while on Zoom. We have a lot of great learning and development demo hours and brunch and learns, and we'll make it a priority and make sure that people feel really enabled to kind of take time from being really focused on their onboarding to just get to know their team members. So that's my welcome committee, and we'll be continuing to sort of develop our initiatives in that area. So on the iteration piece, we survey pretty regularly. So that's weeks 1 at the end, and that survey is for us to gather data on how we've done, but also it serves as a kind of a checklist for the new joiner, right? So you've got your feedback on the program, and then also have you completed your HRIS profile and signed up for your medical and so on. So it's a gentle reminder, and we all need those when we're in that whirl of learning. Week 4 gives us a longer range overview and shifts slightly from like the checklist tasks of the first weeks of onboarding to making sure that, you know, am I clear on my kind of goals for the next month? Have I had a regular check-in with my manager? You know, have I attended X, Y, and Z social? And then we're developing the survey for the end of the 30, 60, 90 days or 16 weeks, which will encompass more of their understanding of the wider organization, the business goals, their team goals, and the process now that they've had a bit of time and they're embedded in the organization. And I think you'll get different kind of tenors of data from your surveys. Again, we've done this really simply. We don't use Culture Amp, we use Google Forms with some collaboration on the questions. You can put one of those together really, really quickly and get great insights. So the check-ins are super important, and they are for the employee experience and also, you know, to gather feedback on everything about not just the onboarding, but how we're doing. So the manager, the buddy, and HR, I'll check in quite a bit in the first couple of weeks, or the team will in New York, and they can be one-to-one, and we'll do an actual team session with the new joiners. And really, it's just about establishing that relationship and that openness to for employees, like, to reach out to you. Because I think what we have seen happen as well is that the longer that we're all working remotely, the more sort of entrenched you can get in your little work bubble in your office, and people are, I don't want to disturb you, I don't want to be pinging you. And we really try to break that down and reinforce that message that it's okay if you have a question to jump on a Zoom for 15 minutes or instant message. It's not an interruption. So really it's the next phase, and that's why I say where to from here, about encouraging those things that make the in-person office experience so easy and enjoyable, which is walking past someone's desk when you have a question, and maybe encouraging people to feel the same way about just giving someone a ping or putting some time in the diary. And then for developing this for our teams, we're really encouraging wider participation from across the organization. So any ideas? There are some great companies out there who do work fully remotely and have some amazing resources, which I'm happy to share with the team here to distribute after. So Slack is one, and Culture Amp is another. But our teams will have ideas from their own experience of working remotely, and from how we rebuild our culture in this remote environment. And we're really focused on that now in the next couple of weeks. So I've skipped to thank you there. Where to from here is really a question for you guys, the question I'm asking myself a lot. And I hope that maybe you've got some thought starters anyway to rethink your process. So over to you, Kevin. Thanks.
Sarah, thanks so much. That was great. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. I especially enjoyed the welcome committee bit. Just that, I think that whole element of new hires beginning, and, you know, as you kind of pointed to, not getting to be in the office with their new colleagues, I think that invites them into the culture of the office, and, you know, everyone having the Pride backgrounds for Pride Month and stuff. I think that's a really good move, and I think it really lets people get the feel for the culture of the office, which is so I really enjoyed that. I got sent a few questions here.
Okay, great.
So I suppose I'll just go through 2 or 3 of them here, and just conscious of the time a little bit. But just to start,
oh, because I go way over. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just aware you're on annual leave. I don't want to take any more of your time.
It's fine. It's definitely, I can do this uninterrupted when I'm on annual leave. So.
Okay, perfect. So what kind of feedback have you received, have HR received so far from new hires on the remote onboarding program?
So I suppose it was about the way that we took the live experience and tried to reenact it. The initial program was over 2 weeks, and it did include some one-to-ones and team level stuff, not just the kind of people kind of onboarding. And it was about the way that we organized stakeholder meetings was one piece of feedback. So someone had said it'd be more useful, this is, you know, to meet their stakeholders in their second week when they kind of knew what was going on a bit more. So we've definitely factored that into our thinking about how we kind of stack the intros for people. And then the other feedback was that we could actually condense the modules, because we were thinking the managers and teams would want more time with the new joiner over that first week. So we had sort of had different modules going over the first week, whereas the feedback from the latest group is, no, let's just like get through all of the kind of orientation program and the self-directed learning and the intros, and people team do a couple of modules and get them done. And then the second week we have our Ask Me Anythings, and it kind of moves into the nuts and bolts of people's roles more and that element of learning. So we've done that for sure. And I think we'll be looking at just making sure our content is as strong as it can be.
Great. So another one is, how long did it take you before you were satisfied with the program you had in place, the remote onboarding program, that you were happy to roll it out?
Okay, so I suppose we had a hard deadline in that I had someone starting in Galway, but we worked on it for, which is always focuses the mind. And like, not being kind of glib, I'm not fully satisfied. I really am. We are taking like a cyclical approach to it, but we worked on it. I would say it took us maybe 3 or 4 weeks, but that was when we had other things going on. It was one of the projects that we had going, right? So I acknowledge that we did have a quite strong basis with the orientation that we were working from, but I would say it took us maybe four weeks to get it shaped up to roll out. But it's still a work in progress. So I think, you know, the key messages you want to get across to people, and always like how you want them to make, you know, how you want them to feel, right? So the role and the team stuff, that kind of will almost happen. It's like what way you're kind of welcoming them into your organization, like your values kind of driven approach, and making them feel welcome and secure will actually clear people's minds and enable them to focus on the job.
Absolutely. So another question has come in. Do you have any onboarding initiatives on a global level to try and prevent an us and them culture?
This is global. This is the same program. Sorry, I should have made that clearer. So I am part of the people, I lead the people function in Galway, but I am part of the people team in New York. And we piloted this with our new starter in Galway. And then we rolled it out a few weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later. And then we had new joiners in all locations, actually. We had someone joining in Galway, people joining in New York, and people joining from Texas.
Right.
So this is the same program for all of our locations.
Perfect. And do you have much training in advance for managers, team leads ahead of time for onboarding?
It wasn't overly laborious, no, or like involved. So the templates that we have, like that schedule I showed you on the 30, 60, 90, they're like core documents that the line manager is definitely, you know, takes the lead on the 30, 60, 90. So we talk them through what we're doing, and HR then partner with the line managers. And like we will do things like we will schedule people's calendars so that when they come in, it's very clear what their week looks like. But I think the line manager role in this is definitely giving them an overview of what we're trying to achieve and our expectations and what the program will look like, but actually feeds more into the role of the line manager more broadly in Rent the Runway, and like the regular check-ins and, you know, line manager capabilities across, you know, the whole function of managing the team. So they have been really responsive, really supportive, and like super engaged with it. So it's gone well so far.
That's great. Good.
Yeah.
If there's no more questions at the moment, guys, look, Sarah, like I said to you, we're going to be sending this out to a few people who've requested it, who couldn't join us today, and anyone else who's joined us today would like the recording of this to be sent to them. We're happy to send it on to you. and we can maybe follow up with more questions.
I would be happy to, yeah. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and ping me there, feel free to reach out. Sorry, I ran on there.
No, it was perfect.
I really love this subject, so if anyone wants to keep talking about it offline, I'm happy to chat. So
the longer the better for us, Sarah. That was perfect. Yeah, good to hear. So thank you so much, Sarah, for talking to us, and thanks so much, guys, for joining us today on our third installment of the Nash Talks Optimising the Home Office Experience with Sarah Lynch from Rent the Runway. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.